Today I want to talk about the Fuji GFX cameras in general. I'm specifically gonna talk about the old school 50S camera, but I also tried a lot of the other ones. And I also tried a lot of the lenses, so this is more like a general talk about the GFX cameras. If you follow me on my blog or my YouTube channel, you probably know that I'm really in love with these old digital bags. Like this one, this is a Kodak, I'm not sure if you can see. It's a Kodak Pro bag, DCS Pro bag. It really has great coloring and great sharpness and stuff, even though it's only 60 megapixels. But it's a little bit, it only works well for some things. It doesn't work well for low light stuff because I only have base ISO 100. So I would also, it's also a really big camera. I also covered the Mamiya ZD, which you can also watch my review of on this channel or on my blog. And that's also a great camera for some things. Again, it's also a big setup. So I was looking for something a little bit smaller that still has great image quality and great colors. And of course you could see, could you not just use the APS-C or full frame camera? Yes, of course you could, but I actually have gotten a little bit used to this great sharpness from these digital bag that actually to me is a little bit, you become a little bit like a snob who only want the best of the best. And those cameras doesn't really talk much to me. Also, I use those cameras for so many years. Like I used the Fuji APS-C cameras for 10 years or something. So things becomes a little bit boring. You kind of get used to how everything looks. For example, when I use my favorite camera here, the Kodak Pro bag, every time I use it, I'm still surprised about the results I get, and I'm still blown away. And also sometimes it completely fails me, but I really miss that feeling from some of the APS-C full frame cameras. I will say, if you want great sharpness and stuff, actually the Sony cameras looks really good, but then they have great lenses, great sharpness from the sensor, but they lack the colors. I like the colors for maybe some things like night photography and stuff, but for maybe daylight photography, I think the colors are not that great. So I was looking for something that's more like a medium format, has great sharpness, but also is small. And also, yeah, I think especially the colors are important to me and the sharpness. I also have experience with other GFX cameras, but I'll get into that later. First of all, I want to talk about the GFX lens lineup, and I think that's actually one of the main weaknesses of this camera and one of the things that really get people disappointed using this camera. I think that a lot of the lenses are used for, designed for product photography, fashion photography, where it's like on a front page of a magazine, those kind of things, where you already have tons of oomph with the flash you use and stuff. You just want super resolution with details. And those lenses that Fuji have designed for this camera are designed for that. They just resolve as much resolution as possible, but they have zero character. If you look at the Fuji X system, I think a lot of the lenses actually has a lot of character there. It could be the 56mm 1.2 has tons of character. Or some of the other ones also. I think that's something where a lot of people get disappointed because you think about Fuji, you think about the film colors, you think about a little bit this kind of analog feeling. But looking at the pictures from the GFX camera, it has zero character. The first lens I actually tried for the Fuji GFX was many years ago. It was the 63mm, and that lens has a little bit bad reputation, but there's also some people who like it. For me, it was just like that's the focal length I probably use the most, so I was gonna buy that. That lens is pretty boring. It has extremely lifeless images. Then I also borrowed the kit zoom lens, which also was pretty boring, pretty average. And then I actually returned the GFX sold the GFX for that time. Next time when I went back to try GFX, I had actually bought like an adapter to be able to mount all my Mamiya glass, and I bought one that was like a smart adapter, at least I thought so. It could basically it could read the metadata for the Mamiya and phase 1 lenses, but it didn't have autofocus. Because to me the medium format lenses from Mamiya and phase 1, they really look amazing. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to use those lenses. That's probably the flaw of the GFX system. And I would say that gave better results, but to me, I just have really hard time nailing focus on those lenses, even though I kind of zoom in and all that stuff. I somehow don't really like the experience, and I actually sold it again. Now I have the GFX again, and I actually just use like a super dumb adapter here for Mamiya 645, and this is the Mamiya 80mm 1.9, the kind of famous one. I will say it's probably, I actually use this setup for low light photography a lot. I think they are really good lenses, but like I also said, I just often miss focus, even though I'm zoomed in and everything. Everything looks in focus, but then when I get back on my computer, I realize it's not really in focus. I think something to at least consider. Then I also realized on DP review, you can get a lot of these sample photos, including the raw files, and that's actually a really great source to kind of look at what cameras do I like, what lenses do I like, and they really have a lot of basically all the GFX lenses you could try to download sample raw files from. And then when I looked at that, I just saw that there was basically all of the GFX lenses had this kind of Sigma art lens clinical look, but there was a few ones who didn't, and one of them was actually this pancake lens, a 50mm 3.5. I think that one, it's not like it has character, but it doesn't have the sharpness, at least, like this kind of clinical sharpness. And if you look here, can I take this off? If you take off the kind of top part, now I don't have the cover on, but it actually becomes a pretty small camera when you don't have the viewfinder on. So I think this is like, I was just thinking this is something you can bring in your backpack every day. But I would say, to my disappointment, it doesn't really have much character, and it's also not that sharp. I know I'm just complaining about kind of clinical sharpness, but there's a bit difference because, for example, the old Mamiya lenses, they actually are very sharp in the center. I think really has a lot of punch, but then they also have some character, and maybe the corners are not very sharp and stuff. But I really like that look, sharp in the center, but still some character. This lens is a little bit boring, to be honest. I also looked at other DP review lenses. I looked at the 100 to 200mm lens. I think that lens also kind of look a little bit the same when I looked at the picture. Also not clinical sharp. I haven't tried it, but if I was going to buy another one, I would probably try that one. Then I also bought the 80mm 1.7. I forgot to bring it today, but that lens actually also it doesn't have clinical sharpness. It actually has a little bit chromatic aberration and stuff. I think it's a good lens, but again, it's not something that really, that's the latest lens I got for the GFX. But again, that's something that really kind of sold me over on the system, and I actually haven't really used it that much. So that's kind of the lens lineup. And I think if Fuji really wants to hit at a wider audience than just like the product photographers, the fashion photographers, those kind of things, then they need to have some better lens lineup. And I just don't hear anybody talking about this. I remember the first time I ever downloaded like a GFX raw file, then I just noticed this instantly that they had this kind of clinical look. And I see a lot of reviews of the GFX online, but nobody mentioned this. So I think it's important. Now it's out of the way, but let's talk about the main camera. The first one we should talk about is probably this one, the first GFX camera that came out. This is the, like I mentioned, GFX 50S. It's the Mark 1. I think it's a pretty old camera right now. The reason why I actually got this is because when I looked at DP review again, I looked at these kind of sample photos. maybe it was just because they had a better photographer for this camera, but I just noticed that all the kind of sample photos looked 10 times better on this camera, had great colors and stuff. So I actually kind of bought this one. I'd already tried some other GFX, but I gave this one a shot. I think it might be true actually. It has a little bit better color because Fuji have changed the color recipe in the last couple of years, and I think there might be some truth to that, but I haven't really done any side-to-side comparison. So it's a little bit like of a gamble. Yeah, you can believe it or you cannot believe it. I think go to, like I mentioned, DP review. Look at some of the raw file samples, and you can decide yourself. But that's why I got the original one. It's also the cheapest one. So that's also, of course, something to consider. And I think actually, I know the GFX 50R are probably the smallest one, but when you remove the viewfinder, it's also very small. And like I mentioned, the price is also great because you don't really have to worry about it. It's not that expensive to just kind of carry around every day. The autofocus, a lot of people complain about. They say, oh, it's so terrible. If you update the firmware and stuff, I think it's actually pretty good. It's not something you're going to use for what I call sport photography or something, but yeah, are you really going to use any medium format camera for that? I think actually it was quicker than I expected at least, and I took a lot of pictures of my son running around and stuff, no problem with that. Yeah. There is a known problem with these cameras, the 50S, which is that the internal battery dies, needs to be replaced. It's something a little bit more difficult than a normal person can do, so you need to send it to Fuji or someone else. An alternative you can do, which is just what I did, just use an external power adapter to charge it, because the problem is when you pull out the battery, you lose all the settings, you have to kind of reset up everything. So in here there's like a charging port for a special charger, and these chargers cost quite a lot, but you can buy them kind of third party on AliExpress or something, very cheap. So then you just charge a battery this way. It's pretty annoying, but it's also pretty simple fix. The next camera I want to talk about is the other camera I tried 2 times now, which is 50S Mark II. A little bit of a disappointment, I would say. It's the same camera as this. It's pretty bulky camera, maybe even bigger than this. When you take off the viewfinder of the Mark I, you can actually get it pretty small. It has IPS, which is probably the reason why people buy it, to be honest. It has a faster processor, so they kind of claim that even though it's the same sensor, it has a little bit better autofocus, but I don't think I could really see much difference. I think it has a little bit worse colors. I could be wrong. Like I also mentioned, Fuji have changed the color science on all the newer cameras, and they are kind of more color accurate, but they're also a little bit more boring. I will say, if it's Mark 1 or Mark 2, I think in general Fuji on all the cameras, even even the newest cameras, Fuji always have good skin color. That's something they kind of always optimize cameras for. So if you just plan on taking portraits and stuff, I just think Fuji GFX or Fuji X system is always great for that. Where, for example, some of the older cameras I have could be something like the Mamiya ZD or something. It often has terrible skin colors. So that's one good thing. I will say, if I had to buy one of these, I think unless you really, really want the IPS, I think I would actually go with the 50S, the first one, or just something like the 50R. But like I was mentioning, go on DP review and check out some of the sample photos. And I think a lot of people are gonna say, you use GFX, but you only use the 50 megapixel version. And I have looked at a lot of the photos for sample photos for raw files for the 100 megapixel version, and doesn't seem that much different to me. Yes, when you kind of pixel peep zoom in, it looks different, but if you just look at the pictures on a 4K monitor or something, I don't really see any difference. And I also will say another thing is that some of the sharpest cameras I have used have not been high megapixel. I think probably the one that gives the sharpest image is this one. It's 16 megapixels. The Kodak DCS Pro Back. So I just think this megapixel thing is a little bit overrated. I will also say another thing, which is there is the Hasselblad X system. I think I would also love to try that, but I also have looked at a lot of RAW files, and yeah, my instincts are kind of screaming at me not to buy it, because first of all, it's insanely expensive. I love the form factor, especially of that kind of super small version. It's called the 907C or whatever it's called. I think the first sensor, the 50 megapixel, the colors looks pretty bad actually. It has this kind of green tint to all the photos, and it's not something that's easily removed. Colors look a little bit better from the 100 megapixel version, but still doesn't look that great. And they have the same problem as the GFX. The lenses are super clinical. They just go for kind of maximizing this 100 megapixel resolution, but they don't really think about having any character in the lens at all. But I haven't tried it. I just looked at tons of kind of sample RAW files I downloaded, especially from DP Review. So maybe if I could become like a super millionaire one day, I'll try it. But otherwise, I think I'm gonna skip it. So what to try next time after selling this Fuji GFX? I still want a camera that's compact, that I could bring every day in my bag. I think actually for now I kind of given up on this thought that those cameras exist. And now I think I just take pictures when I have time with the cameras I really love. And I think actually there's maybe something to that also. I kind of lived with this Fuji, originally I've got this Fuji 100XS. That was the first good camera I really got. And that one I just brought everywhere, so I still have this kind of mentality that you should always bring a camera. But I think maybe there's also, some relief in not bringing a camera everywhere after doing it for so many years, where you could actually just kind of relax and not worry that you have to capture some kind of moment, have a little bit of a break from that. And then just when you have time, then really pull out the things you really, really enjoy to use. Then I still need also a camera for low light photography. I know that you can put any camera on a tripod and you can use it for low light, but I just often like to go for an evening walk somewhere and just bring a camera and shoot some kind of random shots. And often I just think that pictures that work the best are not necessarily the ones that I expect. So if you have to put up a tripod every time, and I kind of like to be able to take something just handheld, and it doesn't have to have IBIS, because it's okay that it's kind of a little bit grainy. You also have those kind of de-noise applications today, but if you could just have ISO 3200 or something, and it does maybe have to be higher, but something like that, then that would also be great. That's also what I was hoping to use this GFX for. I actually recently bought the Phase 1 Phase 1 IQ 150, because that one is the Phase 1 with the CMOS sensor, and that has higher ISO. At least that's what I read in the reviews. But then when I actually tried the camera, higher ISO, I kind of read that it should be able to do pretty high ISO, but in reality it looked terrible, so I actually returned it pretty quickly. But so I'm still also looking for that. I think that's kind of a higher priority for me. If there's someone out there who know that this could be a good digital bag maybe for that, or then I would love to hear your opinion. I think actually the newest Phase 1 digital bags can do that, but they are just insanely expensive. But probably one day I have to try that. And then for now, I'm actually just gonna use this new phone I use, which is also what I'm recording this on. That has like a 1-inch. It's a Xiaomi phone, has this 1-inch sensor, and I use that for just like pictures, daily pictures of my son and stuff. That actually works pretty good. I think. I know it's a little bit like a blasphemy thing to use a phone, but I think actually for just like pictures that is never gonna be really art photos or something, it's actually a relief to maybe just use something simple for that, and then kind of separate it from when you really have time and energy to take good photos. But like I also mentioned, I would love to hear your feedback on what you think could be some of the solution for the things I'm looking for, both like a compact, good medium format camera. Could be you have tried the Hasselblad X system and then you think that's worth a try, or it could be you have some other digital bag you think I should try. I would love to hear that. Until then, take care and see you